Thank you. Thank you. We welcome our chief guest to be here. Thank you very much. And now I would like to call our president, Mr. Richard Lal, to take over from here.
Our chief guest, Honorable Aiyaz Sayed-Khaiyum, Attorney-General and Minister of Economy, Public Enterprises, Civil Service and Communication. Distinguished guests, sponsors, members, industry stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 2019 Annual Convention of Fiji Bus Operators Association, as well as the Annual General Meeting for the members.
There's obviously a number of issues that pertain to the public transportation sector in Fiji, in particular in the bus industry. And we can talk about a number of issues. I think Richard Lal has raised a number of issues regarding the bus industry, some of which I disagree with, some of them which I agree with. I think the reality of the matter is that the bus industry today is in a very completely different space. About a week and a half before the budget itself, I had met with a number of you in the Ministry of Economy office. Richard was not there. Some of the others were here in this room who were actually there. And we did discuss a number of issues, particularly in relation to the bus fare increase. And as you know, the matter is before the FCCC. It won't be prudent for me to comment on it. But we did discuss that. And we also, of course, recognize the fact that bus fares do contribute to defraying the cost that you do face. I have to say this, and I wasn't going to say this, but I think there needs to be a recognition of the fact that when the fuel price hike took place in Fiji back in 2008, 2009, when you did come up to government, we heard you, and we did say that you can keep VAT, and therefore since then you have not paid VAT. So all the bus fares that you do collect, it is essentially VAT exempt. We don't collect the VAT off you, and as a result of that, when the fuel price was about $145, $147 a barrel, since then you've been enjoying that particular concession that we did give you. Of course, since then, bus fare, the price of fuel dropped all the way down to $34 a barrel, as opposed to $145 to $147 a barrel, and you've of course enjoyed that particular diminishing of the world price in fuel. It has now, of course, gone up. I understand now it's about hovering around about $68 a barrel. And you have put in a submission, and it has to go through that particular process, and hopefully we'll have a good outcome. I take umbrage with the fact that I was reading Richard's speech and the written one too. I take umbrage with the fact to say that there's no consultations with the bus industry, and that's completely incorrect. There is consultations. We have been in consultations with you, in particular with e-ticketing, as you know. It took us about 3 to 4 years to get it finally implemented. Companies like Tatirua Transport were the first pioneers in e-ticketing. They did it on their own when we had cash and e-ticketing together. So I think, the message that I had about a week and a half before the budget is that we need to put things into perspective. It's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And of course, there have been certain issues. I mean, like I take exception with the fact that LTA is not here. LTA should have been here. In particular, the CEO himself should have been here because he's the new CEO. I see the CEO of FRA is here. He's made the effort to be here. So should have the CEO of LTA. But that does not mean that everything is now the fault of LTA. There are many issues that we have to discuss. You have to take recognition of the fact that you did enjoy a windfall when the price of fuel went all the way down to $34 a barrel. Nobody wants to talk about that. You have to take cognizance of the fact that today we have referred the commission that Vodafone charges you to FCCC. And FCCC, of course, is currently carrying out the assessment. I'm sure Vodafone has made their representations to them. And from what I know of how FCCC works, and from what I know about how monopolistic powers work within a market economy, that you will probably get some good news from that particular determination that will be made by FCCC. So work is being done, and the fact of the matter is that we want, obviously, the public transportation, which in Fiji is obviously owned by the private sector, to actually grow and do well. You would have seen, and as highlighted by Dhiren in the introduction, that we have reduced duty on a number of items, but we've also increased duty, for example, on motor vehicles in Fiji. And if you heard the speech that we gave in the budget, one of the reasons for increasing the duty on motor vehicles was to encourage more people to take public transportation, which is you. We want more people to travel in your buses. But as I've said previously, that people won't travel in buses if you have tarpaulins on as windows. The society has changed. People go to work in suits. They don't want to get wet. This is the reality of the matter. 50% of the population is below the age of 27. We have over 600,000 smartphones in Fiji. The attitude is different. And you have to get with times. People change. Ask some of the young, most of you bus owners who are here, you've handed down from generations, of course, ask your younger children or your children who are actually working in the bus industry. They know how the young people actually think. And that's 50% of the population. We ourselves actually have to struggle with some of the issues. As you know, that we introduced e-ticketing to get rid of the voucher system. Of course, we've been very liberal with it. We said school students could travel till about 7 p.m. because we thought some of them may be playing football or rugby or studying late or maybe on detention. So then they can get to school, get to travel or take advantage of the subsidized bus fares. But obviously it's being abused. We know that parents are abusing it. In fact, we currently, John is just working with Vodafone to see where, at what times are the concessions cards being used. And we understand a lot of them being used around about 10 o'clock in the morning, between 10 to 2 in the afternoon. Obviously, the students are supposed to be in school. It's the parents who are using it or the family members. And as announced in the budget, that now those cards can only be used in the mornings and in the afternoons up till 4:30 p.m. and that's it. So that will, of course, be some cost savings for you. So we are listening, we are responding, because it also helps us to manage our funds too. It's critically important to understand that. There is no, the bucket that we have actually does have a bottom. It's not bottomless. You don't have bottomless buckets, neither do we. So we have, however, made a number of concessions in the budget. So we have now said that losses can be carried forward for the next 8 years. That's for businesses. We've also said that the FNPF that you pay, you can now claim 100% of that as deduction in your tax returns, which of course is great because every single thing you pay in FNPF, you can actually claim that back as tax deduction. So please pay everybody's FNPF. That's the whole idea. But it's also to ease, in terms of businesses, give an ease of doing business, but also the cost of business. We also, as you would have seen, we've said any offshore borrowings is now, there's no stamp duty, so some of you who may be borrowing directly from offshore, there won't be any stamp duty applicable on that. I also wanted to highlight a couple of other key areas that was announced in the budget. We made an announcement in last year's budget that any commercial buildings that has a renovation of $1 million or more will get various investment allowances. We've now reduced that threshold to $250,000. So any commercial building that you own, whether it's in the municipal area or outside municipal areas, if you carried out a minimum renovation of $250,000, you get a 25% investment allowance. So please take advantage of that. And I know some of you, or quite a few of you, own buildings there. Some of you, of course, have investments. If you now buy bonds or treasury bills or promissory notes with government or FDB or housing authority, The interest that's earned from that is completely tax-free now. We've also got some very good propositions on residential housing development. Some of you, I know, have deep pockets, and you could actually be investing in those spaces, including development of housing for public rental. We also have investment for if you're building warehouses. There's a number of initiatives in respect of that. But I wanted to talk to you specifically about the bus fares and heavy machinery. The duties have been significantly reduced. So fiscal duties on new buses, not less than 16 seats that is, anything higher than 16 seats, will be reduced to 0%. Absolutely no duty on any new buses being brought in. Fiscal duty on used buses will be reduced to 5% only. And this concession will be available for the next 2 years. So we hope that you can do those investments in the next 2 years. Again, we've spoken to the Reserve Bank of Fiji, and those bus companies, of course, that want to get into this space, there will be the interest rate concessions will also be available. We've reduced the duty on any heavy machinery. It includes cranes, forklifts, walk trucks, bulldozers, graders, etc., excavators. All of that duty has been reduced to 5%, including for used ones. And as Richard highlighted, you can bring in buses that's as long as Euro 4 compliant. It does not have to be 5 years or younger. It can be 10 years or younger, or up to 10 years or 12 years, as long as it's Euro 4. And I understand a lot of Euro 4 buses, for example, available in Japan second-hand that you can pick up at those rates. We have increased the duty on motor vehicles rather significantly. And those duties are obviously applicable now. One interesting fact also is that many motor vehicles in Fiji, even though, as Richard highlighted, that we've got the new fuel standards that have been made applicable from January of this year, every single new motor vehicle that's been coming into Fiji, almost every single new motor vehicle is actually Euro 2. So even though fuel standards are Euro 4, 5, the actual vehicles are Euro 2. So we put a stop on that also now. So any new vehicles coming into Fiji has to be Euro 4, at least Euro 4 compliant. For some of the, I know new motor car dealers, it may seem to be a bit of a tough call, but they knew this was coming. I mean, how can you expect to have Euro 4 fuel, but continue to get Euro 2 cars? So Fiji actually became the dumping ground for Euro 2 cars. So all other countries, they've got Euro 4 fuel, Euro 5 fuel, and the motor vehicles are coming at that particular range, Euro 4, Euro 5 vehicles, but Fiji is being dumped with Euro 2 cars. So we have to obviously, be in step with what is happening internationally. I highlighted again, and this is not to defray or take away from the challenges that you do face. As I said at the meeting that we had before the budget, that there are rural areas, and in particular those who drive in the rural areas, there are numerous challenges. You don't have tahsil roads. You have lower density populations now because there's a huge rural-urban drift. You can go to various parts in Vanuatu, you can go to parts in northwest of Viti Levu, where the population numbers have dropped significantly. Yet bus services are being provided. We recognize that. At the same time also, we need to try to understand that the size of the buses serving those routes needs to also change. Economically, it does not make sense to run a 50-seater bus when the bus will only have a maximum loading of only 20%. It does not work. So this is why if you look at the duty reduction, we've said anything over 16 passengers above. That's why the duty has been reduced, because as you know, there are different classifications before you're up to 16 to 24, then 24 and above. So we've actually got rid of the middle tier of the classification of the bus. We recognize that, but we do need to make changes. We do need to make changes in terms of the size of the buses that are running. We also need to understand that government, as we've stated on numerous occasions, Once, for example, the 4-laning of the road is completed between Nosori and Suva, we will have dedicated bus lanes. And that is critically important because we want to ensure that more people take buses. We also have to start making provisions for that. Because as I've said previously, if I'm, those of you who know the Suva-Nosori corridor, if I live inside Davulevu and I have to catch the express bus and the dedicated bus lane from the highway at the roundabout at Nasinu 9 miles, how will I get from Davulevu to the main road? I'm not going to walk. I work in a bank. I may be wearing a suit. I'm wearing high heels. I'm not going to come to the main road. So we need to make provision for a parking area around the highway. So I can drive my car from Davulevu inside to the highway, then wait for the express bus and take the bus. That's how it's done overseas. I've just come back from Sydney. I mean, it makes sense. People go to the railway station. They go to the railway station, they park their cars, parking is made available, they catch the train, go to work, come back by train, and catch their car and just go back to their house, which is a few streets away. That's what we need to do here. So, as I said the other day, a week and a half before the budget, there are a number of initiatives that you can also undertake. And I've said this before and I'm saying it again. I have never seen an advertisement by the Fiji Bus Operators Association. Not a single ad. On TV, on radio, in newspaper, saying what a great job you people are doing. You are not marketing yourself. You complain LTA is not here. LTA is not going to market you. Vodafone is maybe in a way marketing you, but it's their business interest. So everything is left to government to do. So you also need to take a step forward. Maybe you can collaborate with the people you buy buses from the fuel companies. You can collaborate with them. You need to be smart at marketing yourself. To say what a great job you're doing, what a great service you're providing. What Richard is saying, yes, some of those things he's saying is absolutely correct. But there's no point saying to a room full of people who already know that. You need to say to the people who don't know that, or who are not sensitized to that, who should know that if they rip out a bus seat, it's costing you thousands of dollars. And I've already said this. Your buses are the best billboards. Those billboards are free. You don't have to pay for the billboard. You don't have to go to Go Advertising. You go to your own advertising company. That's your billboard. Put up the signages. You have to do that. Because it is an age, a time, an era where people need to be fed information. People need to have information straight in their faces. Look at the young people in your family members. How do they get information? Information is fed to them. We are today now investing in this year's budget. We've announced $34 million towards Digital Fiji program. In about 12 months to 18 months' time, everything will be done online. Everything will be done online. From yesterday, we have now company searches, name registration, reservations being done online. And please remember this, I'm warning you about this. By October of this year, all of your companies will need to re-register. If you don't register within a particular period of time, you'll be deregistered. So go and re-register your companies, then electronically all your information will become available. So next time you go and apply for a loan from the bank, they don't take a few days to give you an answer, so that because they normally send a clerk to go to the company's office, check the details, check the director's details, and then they get back to you. The moment you go to the bank, they'll online do a search, they'll pay for that service, they'll give you an answer within 5-10 minutes. That's how it's going to be. So you need to get up to speed with that. We've already had about 14 companies that have now registered as what they have corporate cards. They've got corporate cards with the company's office. You can do the same too. You need to get with the program. So there's a number of changes taking place. My point being that yes, there's some issues that need to be addressed by this bus fare issue, and hopefully we'll get a resolution on that. And as I said a week and a half before the budget, we do empathize that there are some issues that you have. You have some challenges that you do have. As you know, that a couple of years ago, we reduced the duty from 32% on new tires all the way down to 5%. We reduced the duty on what do you call motor parts, machinery, etc. We reduced the duty. We've now zero-rated duty on new buses. Second-hand buses is 5%. We've also said, of course, that if people go off and buy electric buses, we'll pay you $10,000. We'll pay you $10,000 if you go invested in that. Of course, they'll take a little bit of time. But the fact of the matter is we made a commitment to do that. We continue to invest in the road system. I mean, CEO FRA may not be necessarily pleased with the budget that he's been given, but the fact of the matter is that we've decided to ensure that we lower our deficits overall for government. It's a good space to be in. I think it will also make people work a lot more in a sharpened manner. But we've still given enough ample money for all the agencies to continue to provide the services. We have said, those of you from the Western Division, the work on the 4-lane road between Nandi and Lautoka will commence at least before the end of the next financial year. And there's a number of key arterial roads in which we're investing money in. Things even like better street lighting, footpathing, etc. is all being done. Some of you I know may bring in foreign workers into Fiji. It was interesting. I was yesterday at the Construction Industry Council meeting, and the reality of the matter is that many people are now bringing in foreign workers. We've said we'll get rid of the bond system. The bond system is going to go away. No longer have to keep money in bond. All you have to do is simply pay a small fee. The way the system works in Singapore is that if you want to bring in a foreign worker, if there's a need for it, you pay for the work permit application and you pay a small fee, and that fee goes towards training of Fijians. So, through FNU or TVET, etc. We need to invest in people. I mean, the construction industry is a classic example. Because many of them have not invested in their tradespeople, they have not recognized the skill sets that they have, many of them are now working in Christchurch, in Australia and New Zealand. So the unfortunate thing is now we bring in workers from Bangladesh, Philippines, Indonesia, because of the lack of investment in those people. So in that sector too. So please also understand the changing dynamics. It's in the same way. Today we have a huge shortage of cane cutters in Fiji. Many people don't want to cut cane anymore. Don't live 30, 40 years ago. Young people don't want to cut cane. We're paying people in prisons willingly, so they're under no obligation to do that. It's not forced labor. We pay them money to go and cut cane. So we have mechanization in the cane industry. You have cane harvesters. It did not happen even 20 years ago. So in the same way that you may have challenges with bus drivers, how many people want to drive buses? Before it was a big deal to drive a bus. I know, I come from the bus industry. Now, of course, that's changing. So how is your association responding to that? What are your strategies? We can't go and force people to become bus drivers. We can't force people to remain in the bus industry. What is your strategy as an association to deal with that issue? What is your strategy as an association to tell the Fijian people what important role you play in getting people to and from work? And what about your margins? I mean, you need to be able to tell them about it. As announced in the budget also, we've put in place a committee to look at the business processes of FRCS, and we'll be writing to your association to have one representative on that committee to look at the business processes within FRCS and how FRCS can better respond to the bus industry, for example, in your case. So inviting people from different sectors in the economy, and then they'll be giving the input as to how FRCS can, deal with you. In particular, understanding your businesses, understanding your business model has not been too demanding, sending out garnishes, etc. at the wrong time. So we want to work together. We're trying to create a good business environment. Many people were expecting corporate tax rates to go up. Many people were expecting VAT to go up. All sorts of changes were going to be made. That's what they thought. But it did not happen. Because we believe in consistency. We believe in maintaining the stability in the environment to ensure that we give business confidence. I'm quite happy actually to take some questions with your permission after this, because I don't want to labor too many of the points. But please, let me give you one very simple message. We do understand and we do appreciate and recognize that the bus industry plays a pivotal role in the Fijian economy. Let me categorically state that. We are not undervaluing you. We're not underappreciating you. We recognize that and we appreciate that. And I know many people in this room, I know some of you personally, that many of you have come down, as was highlighted by Richard, from generations of providing bus services. Some of you are new to the market, some of you have been there for decades. And we recognize that. You also have to recognize that the FBOA needs to get into the 21st century also. You need to market yourself. The clientele you serve is completely different to what it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're very different. Just walk down the street and talk to the people. They think very differently. You need to get into that space. You need to understand your market. Because if you have the same modus operandi, the same way of engagement with all the stakeholders, you'll always feel that nothing is being done right. Number 3, we have a number of concessions available. Technology has changed. You have also become a highly politicized sector. I just read in the papers that one of the politicians who remain nameless said that the reason why we introduced e-ticketing was to make all you people richer. The rich people richer. That's a fact. And that's from the opposition, obviously not from government side. You understand that. Please try and understand that. We stand up in Parliament and defend you people. We stand up in Parliament and defend e-ticketing. So you need to understand what we are also doing. So you need to reposition yourself. The third issue is this, that, as we have seen in some of the sectors, there sometimes need to be a natural reorganization within that particular sector itself. And some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you may be growing too long in the tooth to actually stay within the sector. Some of you may need to conglomerate or consolidate your different companies to be able to get the economies of scale. Economies of scale is very, very important. If you're running 3 bus trips in a particular area where they used to have a large rural population, and if now you have only 1/5 of the population, you will never get the economies of scale. So you have to recognize that. That's a fact. It's the same way, you had Pan Am flying to Fiji and Air India and all the other airlines used to fly to Fiji. Fuel prices, change in technology, longer range aircraft have now changed the entire civil aviation sector. You also need to recognize what is actually happening in your sector too. So I would urge you to, as an association, as opposed to be simply using this occasion as an outward, frustrative consultation process amongst yourselves, to do some soul searching, look inwards as to how you can actually collaborate with each other and reorganize yourselves. It's very, very important. But please understand that we do want to work with you. Like I said, once this bus fare issue is resolved, that's not necessarily the answer to all your problems. We need to understand, okay, if you're saying you need a bus fare increase, what will happen the next time when the price of fuel goes down even further? What will happen if the price of fuel goes up 10 times more? What mechanisms will we put in place? The fuel companies, of course, every quarter the fuel prices gets reviewed. Now there is talk about perhaps getting the fuel prices reviewed every time the fuel goes up or down. Quick responses to the market. You go to Sydney, you see the price changes every day on the same service station. We don't have that. So do we do that, or do we review the fuel on a monthly basis? Do we review your bus fare every day? Do you review your bus fare every month? Do you review your bus fare every quarter, every year, every 2 years? We need to come up with a long-term solution. She's not just thinking about till here. So have you thought about that? What is your position on that? Are you going to have a minimum threshold? Like with the fuel companies at the moment, there is a trigger mechanisms. If within the 3 months, or before the end of the 3 months, if the price of fuel goes up 10% more or 10% less, then it triggers a change in price. We also currently, FCCC is looking at various other regulated pricing sectors. So for example, the price of flour, the price of rice, the price of cooking oil, a number of other items in Fiji is price controlled, is regulated. Now many of the businesses have actually made submissions saying that the module that's being used is actually out of touch. With a very heavy weight given to the actual importation cost, but the other costs such as marketing, labor, freight has been given a lower weighting. So they want it reworked. So what kind of weighting do you want to have? Are you simply going to respond to fuel price changes? Because I'm sure that's not your only cost. Your cost is also labor, right? Your cost is also the price of fuel, price of lubricants, price of tires. Maybe you want to have a factor cost of those who may be driving in rural areas. Loading factor. Have you thought about that? Have you got a sophisticated approach to pricing? Have you got a nuanced approach to pricing? I suggest you have not thought about that. You've only thought about price of fuel. So in order to be able to take not just a sophisticated approach, but a credible approach to all the other stakeholders and say, look, we've thought well about this and this is the kind of weighting we'll give, you'll get a better response. Because when you simply come up with price fuel increases, they'll say, hey, last time we gave you that VAT exemption, $145 a barrel, price came down, you never brought down the price of fuel, price of bus fares, and now you want it to increase just because it's gone up to $60 a barrel. You won't get many people buying in. But if you had a more nuanced approach, saying, look, this is the price of fuel, but the cost of labor has gone up, the cost of the bus drivers have gone up, the cost of lubricants have gone up, whatever. If you factor that in, give it different weighting, then you get a better response. And I suggest that you do that. Use this occasion to please do that. And even if you can make a resubmission, I'm sure that they'll hear you. So my point is that let's take a lot more sort of modern approach to the sector. Let's be able to understand what we are doing, what you're doing, and then we'll get a lot better collaboration. But like I said, you do play a very pivotal role. We want, of course, the public sector to run around. The government certainly does not want to run your buses. We're not going to be like New South Wales, where the government owns all the buses and owns all the trains. We don't want to get into that space. So you do provide a very, fantastic opportunity for us in the economy. I mean, I've seen, last point I'd like to make is that the number of motor vehicle registrations in Fiji within 18 months shot up by over 60–70%. So those people previously who now own cars used to catch your buses. They're now going to work, going home, visiting on cars, in cars. If you, I don't know how many of you actually sat down on the Suvarnasori corridor in the morning, you can count so many dozens of cars, one after the other, going to Suva with only one person in the car. Obviously that leads to traffic congestion, etc. We want them to get off the cars and get into your buses, at least during the peak periods. That's our challenge. And we have to do that. Of course, the duty has gone up. Already some motor vehicle dealers are saying to us, we've imposed ECAL now on motor vehicles too. So these are the challenges that you have. Let's recognize them. Let's work together with all the partners, and we'll be able to get a much better approach to the bus industry. But I'd like to thank you once again for your dedication and, of course, your perseverance throughout the number of decades. And I wish you well in your conference. Vinaka, thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.